This is what we've been working on for the last 2 years. The culmination of everything we've learned about natural building since moving onto this raw land in Cochise County, Arizona back in 2020.
Us and our 4 kids have moved over 1 million pounds of dirt, stacking layer upon layer, working through design challenge after design challenge, fighting the high winds, desert winters, and monsoon summers.
It's a family home built out of earth, and even though it's not finished, it has a story to tell. After documenting this process so far, with over 100 videos, we're going to go back to the beginning.
How this unique house was conceived, why we're building this way, how we safeguarded the foundation, why the design is both beautiful and functional, how we're tackling practical concerns like utilities, and the big one, how are we going to put a roof on this thing?
So let's get you caught up and answer all the frequently asked questions about the Hyperadobe roundhouse.
So what is Hyperadobe? That seems like the perfect place to start.
Earthbag building was pioneered by Nadir Khalili of the Cal Earth Institute using sandbags and barbed wire to create monolithic dome structures resistant to fire and earthquakes. He further improved it by implementing Superadobe, or long tubes of enclosed polypropylene bag material that gets filled with earth, moistened, and then tamped into a formed adobe brick. Think of the process like a huge 3D printer. But you're the printer, laying each course and building the walls layer by layer.
Nearly 30 years later, Fernando Pacheco developed the Hyperadobe earthbag method. This focuses on building vertical walls using rational knitted fabric, kind of like what you see fruit packaged in at the grocery store. Not only does this mean you're using a fraction of the plastic material around the dirt, but it costs less and you don't need barbed wire between the layers, because the open netting allows the material from the lower layer to lock into the new layer above.
We've been furiously experimenting the last 5 years here with Hyperadobe, building a solar shed office, a large outdoor chicken garden, a small composting toilet outhouse, benches, planters, and outdoor shower, and have taken everything we've learned from those projects to design this huge 2,500 square foot roundhouse for our family.
Through that process, we've learned that Hyperadobe has a number of benefits.
They use localized, cost-effective natural materials like sand, rocks, and clay. The thick walls create thermal efficiency and thermal mass transfer. They're fire resistant, wind resistant. Shoot, they're pretty much bulletproof.
Earthen walls are breathable, and using natural materials creates a safe home free of chemicals and their long-term effects. While there's a lot of physical labor involved, anyone can do it without fancy or expensive tools. Built properly, earthbag buildings can last for hundreds or even thousands of years. And it's just a therapeutic way of construction. You get to hang out with friends and family, there's fresh air and sunshine, and it's a great way to build community.
Yes. Now, some might say that encasing earth in plastic isn't very natural or environmentally friendly, but after decades of research, there is a reason that earthbag building has come to use plastic to wrap around the earth as you build. Number one, safety is a huge concern while building. Earthbag walls can take a long time to build, and during this time, they're exposed to the elements. Heavy rains, wind, and snow can all erode or oversaturate sections of the wall, especially if not filled with the proper mixture. The plastic is used as a temporary stabilizer to keep everyone safe on the job site while the project is in progress. Number two, it allows you to form each section of the wall in a consistent way and create beautiful shapes that are structurally sound. And three, in the case of Hyperadobe, the actual amount of plastic being used is very minimal. This entire roundhouse used 9 rolls or 360 pounds of plastic. In America alone, each person throws away 300 pounds of plastic trash per year. And if you think about the huge amount of dense plastics you already have, products, tools, toys, appliances, even the plastic used to build parts of your house, the amount that we're talking about is pretty small in the grand scheme of things. Hyperadobe is UV treated so it won't break down or cause microplastics. Once it's roofed and plastered and protected from the elements, it pretty much becomes inert and just silently stays there.
For us, Hyperadobe has put the power back in our hands to design and build a beautiful, functional family home with minimal environmental impact. And by sharing what we've learned, we hope we can inspire others to do the same.
Now, speaking of, we're actually excited today to announce Hyperadobe.com. It's the easiest way to buy these Hyperadobe bags and have them shipped directly to your door. We've built a handy calculator to help you figure out how many rolls you need, and a simple order form and online payment system so that you can buy them fast, not have to talk to anyone, and they get shipped straight to you.
Now, we do have lots of big plans for this Hyperadobe store, but for now we're starting small and we just hope you find it useful.
Okay, let's get back to the roundhouse. Before we get into the deeper details, we wanted to kind of give you a quick overview of what we've done so far. Like we said, we're about 2 years into this project, and to help us explain, we've got something really special to share with you.
About 6 months ago, a viewer, Joseph Bullata, reached out via email and he said, "I'm a longtime fan of the channel with experience of creating 3D content like art, models, and prints, and was looking for a hobby modeling project. I decided that attempting to replicate the captivating, unique design of the roundhouse was a perfect fit."
So attached to this email was a mind-blowing animation of our progress on the roundhouse step by step.
And what's even crazier is he never even contacted us to get measurements.
Did it all on his own. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to play his build animation, and we're going to talk over it and tell you each step of the process. Cool?
Cool.
First, we brought in 300 tons of A/B mix to level and compact the foundation. We set a center point and marked out the floor plan. You can also see us marking our plan for our plumbing. We dug the trenches for the wall, installed the plumbing, and then we started laying bags.
Each course or layer of the roundhouse was about 400 linear feet of earthbag, or 20 tons of material. At course 4, we added door forms. Then we kept adding layers until we reached the window height. There are 24 windows in this roundhouse. We also added forms that we'll take out later to install glass bottle bricks.
Lintels were installed at the tops of the window and door forms at course 20, with the exception being the huge kitchen window getting its own lintel a few days later. We kept building up in layers, with the inner circles going higher to create the 112 pitch roof. The earthbag walls were finished in December of this past year, and we're currently in the middle of pouring a concrete bond beam that will help support the roof, which, by the way, he also rendered. We ended up continuing to communicate with Joseph over the next several months, and he helped us render out different variations of our kitchen window height and roof overhang to maximize our view of the mountains no matter where you are in the main room. He even geolocated the house, rebuilt the mountain range behind us, and showed us what it would look like different times of the year.
We kept giving him more details, and we kept getting back even more true-to-life renders of various bits, like the underside of the roof bar joists.
So obviously Joseph is immensely talented, and while the work he did for us was, in his words, shared as a mark of gratitude for the inspiration and hours of informative and entertaining content enjoyed while watching our channel, we just wanted to thank him publicly and share his contact information for anyone else out there that is looking for incredibly detailed 3D modeling work.
The fact that Joseph designed this roundhouse in a 3D model without even talking it to us, it just tells you how dedicated he is to getting the details right. You probably saw that in the video there were incredible details like ramps that we built for the doors, the water boxes, even some of the writing on the forms, and we can't forget the gong noise as you enter the front door.
Yes! Oh, and he didn't stop there.
No.
He's kept going. And the most recent renders he sent me, basically he's built everything on our homestead exactly where it should be, exactly to the right scale. Check this out. You can get in touch with Joseph via the email on screen or in the description of this video. And just one more time, a huge thank you to Joseph for all the work he did for us, especially helping us get the perfect view out our kitchen window.
Now that you're all caught up, we know that you have questions. So let's start at the beginning. We'll talk about how we came up with this design and the plans for this roundhouse.
Our driving force behind the Hyperadobe roundhouse is to build our family home on our own terms, create something truly beautiful and unique that lasts for generations, and show what's possible on a larger scale with this technology.
Now, one of the main reasons that we spent several years prior experimenting with Hyperadobe is because we had no construction experience at all. We really just wanted to make sure that this building method was going to work for what we wanted to do.
There was very little information about Hyperadobe online anywhere, so we had to run our own tests, but we were able to take the results of those experiments and design the Hyperadobe roundhouse. But we do need to give credit where credit is due.
It's true. This house is mostly based off of a house in Australia called the Willow End Roundhouse. Seeing their structure really was a jumping off point for designing our own home.
The big idea is genius, really. The large diameter circular walls naturally remove the need for additional support because of their shape, and the straight walls intersect, strengthening the structure and allowing for flat surfaces to use more traditional furniture. Basically, you get an organic flowing floor plan with both straight and curved walls.
And even though we were inspired by the Willow End Roundhouse, it's important that we take that idea and modify it to fit our family's needs.
We ended up with 4 different diameter circles intersected with 4 straight walls. Let's do a quick tour of the floor plan. The largest diameter circle and its intersecting walls create the area for the kitchen and living room. The front door entryway is here, with the kitchen across the back wall and the huge picture window framing the mountains behind us. There will be a large 11-foot kitchen island mirroring the window. Over here will be a framed wall and a walk-in pantry, and the center area will have couches and chairs for more of a hangout spot.
The inner circle has another exterior door that takes you out to the courtyard, but we'll come back to that in a minute. As you walk down the 5-foot earthbag hallway, there are 6 doors to the right. These lead to rooms that will be separated by framed walls. The first is the main bathroom. It's large enough for a double vanity, toilet, and a huge shower.
The next room uses a self-supporting arch to create an always open door that takes you to the mudroom. There will be a washer, dryer, dog wash station, and an area to remove muddy clothes and shoes. The arched door is directly across from another exterior entrance that you can enter if you're dirty. Sectioned off in this room is another framed wall that will be used for utilities. Stuff like power, water, internet. We'll cover utilities more in a bit. From there, we'll use 3 more framed walls to create the bedrooms for each of our 4 kids. Each bedroom will have 2 windows and over 200 square feet of space.
At the end of the hallway will be another framed wall and a door that leads into the main bedroom. We'll also use a framed wall to create a separate bathroom, and there are 2 exterior doors. One takes you out to the main courtyard, and the other takes you to a private outdoor shower and soaking tub area.
Looking at this layout can be a little confusing because the big courtyard area is actually outside, not inside. We have a few different ideas for this, but it's definitely going to be a gathering spot. And then back over near the big kitchen window, we'll be creating an outdoor kitchen area to take advantage of our beautiful spring and fall weather.
Now it's time to talk about structure and safety. I'm sure you're thinking, how in the world is 1,000,000 pounds of wall even safe? What if it collapses or falls over? How is it even structurally sound?
Well, it starts with the foundation. Like we mentioned earlier, we brought in 300 tons of AB mix and had it leveled and compacted to bring the whole building up about a foot. This was to protect from the sheet flooding we get during monsoons, but also to ensure that the base was strong enough to hold the weight of this building.
We actually have a lot of sand here, so it was important that we did this so our building didn't sink.
Then we dug 18-inch trenches where the walls would go set to the same depth with a laser level. 5 inches of large diameter gravel was added for drainage and then tamped into place for additional foundation strength. This is often called a rubble trench. Now, we talked to a lot of concrete companies about the best way to do this, and they said they felt like a concrete footing wouldn't be strong enough to handle the weight of all the walls. So we basically used 4 layers of Hyperadobe earth bags to create our own.
All of our bags are filled with the AB mix as well. We chose this for maximum strength and time saving as the material came pre-mixed in each dump truck load. AB is basically a third clay, third aggregate, and a third sand. We stabilize all the walls by adding 5% Portland cement and water. Then the bags are tamped both on the top and the sides to basically form a large brick. Now, for the lower foundational bags, as well as the very top bag, we added 10% of Portland instead of the 5% like we did for the wall, and that was just to add extra strength. We have a hallway.
And so if you're curious about the process for laying Hyperadobe bags, we have a really detailed full Hyperadobe earth bag guide you can go check out here. Otherwise, let's keep going. Those lower 4 layers were also wrapped in harbor cloth to protect against rodents and a heavy-duty vapor barrier to keep moisture from wicking up into the walls. Like we mentioned earlier, circular walls are inherently strong because gravity will pull the wall in, but it's stabilized against itself because of the shape. This allows us to create these large diameter walls that didn't need additional support.
Now, anytime you do have a straight wall, buttressing is definitely needed. A buttress should be placed about every 10 feet and around door openings. A buttress is a perpendicular wall that should come out 3 to 4 feet at the bottom, and it can step in as it goes up. So in our design, you can see that the big kitchen window has 2 buttresses supporting the window opening and this long 30-foot wall. The back door is close enough to the circular wall and the window buttress, so it doesn't need any additional support.
The other straight walls are either short enough not to need a buttress or use intersecting walls that act as buttresses. This was able to give us a really clean design that didn't need a lot of extra support. One more super important concept in earthbag building is interlocking. Every time a wall or buttress comes in contact with each other, the layers get overlapped or interlocked. This happens every other layer for maximum strength, ensuring all wall joints are connected in a way that they can't separate or fail.
Now, as you build these walls vertical, it's important that you keep them plumb. We actually prioritize keeping them plumb over keeping everything level, because if the wall starts stepping in or out, that's where things can get really dangerous.
For example, this hallway wall was definitely pushing the boundaries of how many breaks you can add, even in a circular wall with earth bags. As a result, when we were building this wall, we had to be really careful because in between the doors there are these tiny sections of bags and you could actually feel them moving while you were working on it.
We did use cleats to hold these forms in place and diagonal bracing to keep the forms plumb, which helped us keep the walls plumb, but staying consistent with that curve over the course of 15 layers was very difficult. The good news is, once we got above the doorways and laid a few long unbroken layers on top, everything locked back together and restabilized.
That only worked with a circular wall though. If we had put 6 doors in a straight wall, there would have been a whole lot of buttressing.
So many butts.
As you get to the tops of those doors and window forms, you need to add a lintel or a header to take the weight of the bags that will eventually go over that opening as you go up. For most of our doors and windows, we built our own lintels out of 3 4x6s and a 2x6. Shishugi bonding them, which is a Japanese technique for preserving wood, then gluing and screwing the pieces together, set on the long side. We just really wanted to make sure that these were heavy duty and would take all that weight no problem. The lintels do need to overlap the opening by at least a foot on each side so they would rest on the bags and take all the weight off the door and window forms. For our large 11-foot kitchen window, we used 2 metal I-beams to carry that load, as 2x just wouldn't be appropriate for that length.
Now, the last steps we're taking to make sure that these walls are as strong as possible is the addition of the bond beam and the roof. On our top layers of each circular row, we embedded rebar staples every 4 feet by sliding it into the back of the bag and tamping around it. The weight sitting on the bottom of the U portion keeps it locked in.
As this video is coming out, we're actually right in the middle of the bond beam process, but we're going to give you a sneak peek. First, we'll be building rebar cages attached to those staples, and then we'll build custom forms and pour the concrete bond beam on the tops of the walls. The bond beam is going to do a few things. Number 1, it will add increased structural rigidity to the walls, and number 2, it gives us a reinforced mechanically bonded material to mount the roof to. But we're not done.
Nope.
There's also hurricane straps.
So many hurricane straps. The hurricane straps were placed 2 feet apart and at least 4 layers down. That way we can use the weight of the bags to attach the roof to the structure.
Each of these straps have a 4,000-pound limit, which I know is a lot, but hear me out. Between those rebar staples and the reinforced bond beam and the hurricane straps and the metal roofing structure, this whole thing is going to be tied together, making those top layers just as strong as the bottom ones. Now, to protect from natural disasters, this is a wildfire-prone area. Building with earth is obviously a great way to protect against that, but also building that roof out of metal and not out of wood makes a lot of sense. In terms of flooding, we get a lot of sheet flooding here. We even have a big berm and swale right behind us that will catch and stop any sheet flowing water, even up to a 1,000-year event.
As you can see, we spent a lot of years researching and planning this house design and the land around it. We want to build a home that's going to last for centuries, not 70 years.
So the safety of this structure is obviously really important, but what's it going to be like to live in this thing?
Let's talk about utilities. Our family is focused on building an off-grid homestead from the ground up and making it as sustainable as possible.
Now, there is a stigma with some natural building that you're going to end up with this like barbaric, difficult way of living, but that doesn't always have to be the case. Like our plan for the roundhouse is to make it modern and easy to live in. There's going to be electric. There's going to be high-speed networking.
There's going to be 2 flushing toilets.
2 flushing toilets in the Hyperadobe roundhouse. By the time we're done, it's pretty much going to be just like the house you live in, just big and round and weird.
Not weird, unique, very cool.
Beautiful, just big and round.
It'll be beautiful.
When people see an earthbag structure, they rightly question how in the world do you put utilities in a house like this? The walls are 16 inches thick. Well, first, I would say you plan ahead. So let's start with plumbing. As you saw earlier, we did a full floor plan design of the house with all the fixtures in place, so we were able to design our drains and vents and integrate into the foundation before building the walls. This meant a lot of digging by hand, adjusting carefully for slope because we needed a really long run with the branches, and planning exactly where the pipes would go under the earthbag walls. Now, you could try to do this later and dig back under your walls after they're done, but it's difficult. Doable, but difficult. In our experience, while the walls are very strong and heavy, they actually distribute their weight really well. For example, you can see these outlets put in on layer 7. There are 20 plus layers above them in some areas, and there's been absolutely no downward pressure or damage to them. Same with any PVC conduits laid through the wall. They don't collapse or break because the earth forms around them, holds the shape, and distributes the weight. With plumbing, we were a little worried that if the walls ever did settle independently of the ground, the pipes could be broken, so we installed 8-inch metal well casing for the plumbing to go through when it went under a wall. To be fair, this isn't something we've seen happen to any of our other buildings. They're all exactly where we put them. But the scale of the roundhouse made us a little nervous, and so we went ahead and did this as an extra precaution. And by the way, haven't seen the roundhouse move either, and the walls are finished. One of our secret weapons for dealing with utilities in earthbag walls is to build framed walls to put those utilities in. While the earthbag walls provide the main support structure, adding these framed walls to create the rooms gives us the opportunity to easily run utilities inside of them. So when stubbing up where fixtures would go, we put as many of them into the framed walls as possible. Toilets and showers obviously have to go where they need to go, but everything else, sinks, drains, laundry, vents, they can all hide inside those framed walls.
Here in Cochise County, we're required to have a septic system sized for the house, so plumbing goes directly into that system at the proper slope. And that's all for the plumbing.
That's it. Yep. But you know what? To flush a toilet, you need water.
It's true. In our area of the country, wells have become so expensive that we are focused on rainwater catchment only. What that means is that our huge metal roof on the house is going to collect as much water as possible during heavy monsoon events. This will be sent to a 30,000-gallon above-ground metal storage tank across the driveway here. Now, this system is going to be a wet delivery system, which means all the water is going to go straight down into those pipes underground and then pop up at our water catchment tank.
Right, there's not going to be big pipes hanging suspended in the air. The wet delivery system works by making sure that your downspouts are higher than the entry point into the tank, and so gravity just sort of makes it work as the water is filling in from the roof. It pushes it up into the tank.
To get the water from that tank into the house, we need to pressurize it, right?
And filter it and pump it, yes.
Yeah. Now, this engine room is actually going to be a really cool project that we're doing a workshop for in April. It's going to be made out of lavacrete, and there's still spots available, so sign up today.
You should come.
Yes, you should. So the pump will pull the water from the big tank, filter it, pressurize it back into the house via a trench to the utility room in the house. Also, when we built the walls in this area, we installed 2 of those well casing pipes to bring utilities back up into the utility room.
Once we get the main water line into the house, we'll likely set up a PEX manifold system and run all the water lines in single unbroken runs up into the roof, down into our framed walls, and to the fixtures. There are a few places where there aren't framed walls, and in those cases, we're just going to hide those water lines with custom cabinetry or a few other things.
Decorative beauty that is going to hide lines.
Yes, that is the plan. To maximize efficiency, our water heater will be in the utility room in the house, not in that Lava Creek building. And depending on the lengths of the PEX run, we might even end up putting little on-demand water heaters at the furthest distances.
Like our shower or the kitchen sink.
All right, let's talk electric. Since we're off-grid, that means no grid, no power. But we are no strangers to building our own off-grid solar systems. For the house, though, we get to build a really big one that I'm really excited about. Currently, the plan is to build a 60 to 90 kilowatt hour LFP storage, have 10,000 to 20,000 watts of AC, 240 volt power, and about 20,000 watts of solar. So yeah, it's a big boy system.
All I hear is number, volts. Wattage.
Hey, but it's the volts you want.
I don't know what I want.
The big volts so you can do the big things.
I just want to plug things in and not ask you a million questions.
Yep, that's the goal with this system. The solar charge controllers, inverters, and batteries will be connected inside that Lava Creek utility shed, which will send a main 240 volt trunk line into the house where it'll be wired into the breaker panel inside that small utility room. From there, it's just a matter of wiring it kind of like a normal house. We'll be going up into the ceiling, out of the breaker box, down into the framed walls, and to the outlets and switches and all that stuff. Well, almost, because there are some outlets that are built into the earthbag walls. In those cases, we'll come down the closest framed wall and then either pin variable Romex in the crack and plaster over it, or we might run some conduit between them and pull it through. The same idea will apply to all the networking cables inside the house. We'll be expanding our Unify mesh system and hardwiring as much as we can in the house with racks in the utility room. They'll go up into the ceiling and down into the framed walls where possible and pulled in conduit when they're in earthbag walls. We're definitely going to use conduit for this cable because networking standards change a lot faster than just copper wire for electrical.
Finally, we'll be using propane for some of the heating appliances like the stove and the oven and the dryer and maybe even the water heater.
Right. The thing about electric heat is that it uses a garbage ton of wattage. And so in order to keep the solar system reasonable and not overly complicated and expensive, we're going to amend our power usage with propane. It really does provide an economical and environmentally safe way to heat things with as little power usage as possible. And really, I mean, it's all just math. Like, we did all the math. We could have built a bigger solar system, but we like also having that backup option. If the solar system were to ever go down, we can still cook stuff. We can still heat our water. It's good to have backups, yes?
Yes. During the build, we set conduit in the earthbag wall near where we plan to install a large propane tank. That will go through the earthbags, go up a framed wall and into the ceiling and drop down to the appliances where needed. Obviously, we already know that using propane things like the stove and the oven need to be vented properly, so we will have a hood to vent them, and the dryer will be vented as well.
Yeah. Speaking of airflow, we haven't really talked about how we want to keep the Hyperadobe roundhouse comfortable during the wild temperature swings that we get here.
Yeah, just for reference, since we live in the high desert, our summer temperatures can reach 110 and the winter can get down to 10 degrees, sometimes even 7. So it's a large range.
7's a very specific number.
Well, I just remember that one of the years we were here, it was 7 degrees. And I was like, this is too cold.
Yeah. It is too cold. A common misconception is that thick walls are insulative, but technically dirt has a really low R value. Here's why. Earth has something called thermal mass transfer. When the sun warms the outside of the wall, it gets absorbed and slowly passed through to the inside. For our 16-inch Hyperadobe walls, we found this takes about 12 hours. That being said, if the wall isn't exposed to sun, that 16 inches of mass will hold the internal temperature very well.
In our climate, the best way to use this to our advantage is to build our longest wall facing south so that in the winter the sun is absorbed and naturally warms the inside. Bonus points if you can put in clear story windows.
In the summer, a roof overhang provides shade over the walls and clear story windows while the sun is at a more overhead angle, helping to keep it cool until the end of the day when the sun is low and will blast the western wall.
Now, the tricky part is none of that really matters if you're not well insulated.
Right, so in the summer, if you have a roof that isn't insulated, you're just going to get all the heat from the sun being directly overhead coming into the building. And in the winter, you're going to lose all that heat into the floor if you don't have some sort of thermal break there.
So an important design feature of this roundhouse is we are making sure our roof is well insulated and our floor.
Yes, and we have considered radiant heating for those of you that are asking. At this point in time, I don't think we're going to do it just because it adds a lot of cost and complexity, and our winters really are fairly mild compared to a lot of places. Still might change our minds on that, but for now, we have decided no.
Also, I'm going to have a ton of rugs, and we'll have slippers, so if we get cold, put shoes on.
One important feature of the roundhouse is this long, tall hallway connecting to the bedrooms. It's 12 foot tall at its highest point, and you can see we put small windows up high. These will be transom windows that we can open during the summer, as this is our west-facing wall. This wall will absorb the heat and transfer it through into the hallway, where our plan is to let it escape via these transom windows and not affect the individual bedrooms. In addition, we'll likely frame out and add extra insulation to this back kitchen wall to keep the thermal mass transfer effects at bay during the summer, and it will allow us to hide utility runs.
A lot of people are asking us why we didn't install geothermal tubes in this house.
There's just too many rooms, right?
Complicated.
Yeah, you saw a little bit of how difficult it was to trench for the walls and the plumbing in that compacted AB mix.
You okay?
Are we done trenching?
Yeah, I gotta go pick up a goat.
If we had to add in geothermal tubes to every single room in the roundhouse, I can't even imagine the Swiss cheese that would have caused. It would have been way too much work.
Also, they have to be extremely deep in the soil to be effective.
And the size of the pipes become comically large, and they have to go a really long distance. Anyway, we thought about it, and for this particular building, it just didn't really make sense because there were too many individualized spaces. So the roundhouse has been designed to be as thermally efficient as possible all by itself, but we will be adding mini splits to do individualized climate control for each of the different bedrooms, and we will have some larger heating options. You want to talk about those?
Well, in the kitchen or living room area, I'm going to either have a masonry heater or a wood stove to use in the wintertime.
Yeah.
So the main goal of this house is to use the heating and cooling appliances as little as possible.
Right. By the time you take into account the way that the earthbag walls are designed, the way the roof is designed with the insulation and the floor and the ceiling, and then using low power appliances like mini splits and wood and gas appliances for heating, the goal is, even with this modern solar system, we want to use it as little as possible.
So at least that's the plan for now. It's been years of research and development, and things can change. But as for now, this is a high overhead view of how this house is going to be thermally efficient. So where do we go from here? Right now, we are finishing up the bond beams so that we will be ready to install that roof.
Right. And so sort of the rough idea now, based on conversations with your dad, is that we will build the whole metal roof structure, but we'll leave the panels off because we need to get the concrete floor poured, and it's going to be hard for them to do that if we completely cover it. So we're thinking we'll bring the pump truck back in, pour the floor, and then get the panels on as quickly as possible. Now, one reason we are so worried about pouring the floor and then getting the roof panels on is because once that floor is in there, if we get a heavy rain, it's going to be above the vapor barrier wrapped wall, so it could just soak into those bags, and I don't think that would be a good thing. So we're trying to protect that area and keep it as stable as possible. In addition to the floor and the roof, there's also that utility lodge workshop that we talked about. That's happening this spring. And then, where do we go after that?
We don't know.
I think the next big goal would be to dry it in.
Yeah.
Probably. So there's a lot of space from the top of the bond beam to the underside of the roof that we'll have to fill in with something. Doors and windows. Then maybe we can run utilities and do framed walls inside.
A lot of people are wondering if we're plastering the outside first. We don't feel in a huge rush to plaster the outside right away.
Right, because those Hyperadobe bags are UV treated. They're good for a really long time out here, but I would imagine we'll probably end up sort of ping-ponging back and forth between working on the inside, maybe coming to the outside. Listen, we're in uncharted territory here, guys. We have lots of plans, but we're also flexible.
It might take longer than we think. Who knows?
We're doing it as we can. We have come so far on the Hyperadobe roundhouse, but we still have a really long way to go.
Yeah, we do. So make sure you're subscribed to keep up with our build here on the homestead. And if you have any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below.
Yes, we will do our best to answer them, and keep an eye out for the next video. We are continuing to build those forms to pour the bond beam. It's going to be a really exciting step.
Yep. We'll see you then.
We can take this.